This is such a pleasure here as we start the new year here at Starcade Media, the Starcade Sports Podcast. Please welcome the voice of the Missouri Tigers. And Mike, if my math works out correctly, this next football season in 2023 will be your 30th year calling Missouri Tiger football.
Yeah, 30 is correct. I've been fortunate enough to broadcast now 357 consecutive games, counting the Gasparilla Bowl a couple weeks ago. So yeah, tremendously fortunate. Looking forward to season number 30.
We're going to get into some basketball, of course, coming up here as the Tigers are ranked in the top 25 here now for just the second time in 8 years. But just coming off the heels of the Gasparilla Bowl, of course, I saw you there in Tampa. Small crowd, cool night, and maybe not the result the Missouri Tigers wanted, but some positive momentum coming on the heels of a lot of defensive starters going to be sticking around. So from Missouri, does 2023 kind of come down to, can Eli Drinkwitz figure out this quarterback situation?
Well, I think there's several different question marks that they'll face coming into the season. Certainly, quarterback is going to be the priority number one. How's Brady Cook? How long does it take for him to recover from shoulder surgery? How much has Sam Horn progressed throughout the course of bowl practice in terms of, being comfortable with the offense, being able to run the offense, being productive in the offense? Do they continue to, perhaps look at at somebody in the portal? I think that's always an option, and when people say, well, you're not actively recruiting a quarterback in the portal, I disagree with that, because I think it's a coach's obligation to continue to look for ways to improve his roster. And I think it's also, I think they have a fiduciary responsibility to try to recruit people that are better than they have at the current position. So I think that's something they'll continue to search out. In the meantime, I think you have to look at the offensive line and look at the different, things up front in terms of, does Connor Tollison stay at center? Does he slide to guard? Javon Foster, what's he going to do in terms of, other positions up front? I mean, they've got some talented young offensive linemen. Valen Erickson, guys like that, Curtis Pigler that didn't play this year. So this is an important offseason for them. And then on the defensive side, certainly you're helped by the return of several people up front, including Darius Robinson making a big announcement just the other day. J.C. Carlisle is coming back, having Rakestraw and KAD back at the cornerbacks. And so, some opportunities to have another really sound defense. But I think you still face question marks really in all three phases of the game. Harrison is back. You anticipate, as a kicker, who takes over as the punter role, the punter's position, now that Sean Ketting has exhausted his eligibility. Jack Stanhouse going into the transfer portal. So, a variety of different areas that I think that require improvement. And certainly improvements needed in all three phases of the game if you want to get to the level of where you want to go.
Well, Mike, I got to be honest, I'm a little thrown off here when it comes to the holidays. When something about when Christmas and New Year's fall on a Sunday, we're sitting here now on a Monday. There's a Rose Bowl going on here, and it just doesn't. It seems like after the college football playoff games and some of the things that we saw on New Year's Day, it's like, we have a Rose Bowl. We have several others today. I'm just kind of thrown off by this. We had NFL games Saturday the 24th and the 25th. I don't know, something about these holidays on weekends throw me off a little bit. I don't know if you're the same way.
Yeah, it's been weird. Like, I knew that professionally this was a day where our offices were closed, but I didn't realize that banks and the postal service was also shut off.
Right.
I forgot that there were games today. In fact, I've paid so little attention to college football since the end of Mizzou's season that it all has kind of just caught me by surprise today as well.
Well, that's going to change here on the basketball front as Missouri heads to Arkansas with a little number now next to their name, number 20 in the country, as we just found out earlier in the day. And that's a good reward, I think, for a team that started 12-1 and coming off back-to-back victories over Illinois and Kentucky. Mike, as Missouri heads to this game at Arkansas, which we know Bud Walton Arena, what a tough place to play. Eric Musselman, back-to-back Elite Eights for the Razorbacks. They're going to be without Trayvon Brazil and Nick Smith Jr. This is a road test that Missouri really is going to test this Tiger team. And how do you see things as Missouri heads on the road and try to keep this momentum going?
Well, happy for Dennis Gates and his staff and,
Yes.
and his players that they're ranked in both polls now for the first time since the 2021 season. 21 by the coaches, 20 by the AP, and very, very, happy with what they've done. Very proud of the way that they've conducted themselves. The challenge at Arkansas is again something that for a number of these guys, it'll be different than anything that they've played in, because now it's a top 20 matchup on the road. And that's different. Missouri's played before 3 really, really good crowds, 2 at home against Kentucky and Kansas, and then 1 in Illinois on a neutral site at the Enterprise Center in downtown St. Louis. And so now you go to Bud Walton, where good teams have been beaten by 52 points.
Yes, 1993.
The 93 team that served as the Illinois game, the triple overtime game, really served as a springboard for them going into conference play, and they went 14-0. So you have to be ready to play. I mean, because it can turn in a hurry. And so this is, I think, another one of those, I describe it as an examination, right? Early in the season to see how this collection of athletes can come together and can bond and can stay together on the road in what's going to be a difficult environment. Now, they passed 1 road test, as you know, earlier in overtime by beating Wichita State on the road. But Bud Walton's a little bit different than the Roundhouse. It's about twice the size of the arena in Wichita. Very passionate, rabid fans in Fayetteville. They'll be excited for the game on Wednesday night, particularly given the fact that Eric's team started with a loss on the road at LSU this past week.
Yeah, Mike, just as someone that's broadcast for so many years at the University of Missouri, and just seeing where Missouri basketball has experienced these ups and downs here, really the last decade since that great Marcus Denman, Kim English, Phil Pressey team that was a 2 seed. Just how difficult has it been just as a broadcaster? Because I've always thought of broadcasting, and you're someone that's been very influential in my career and just getting into sports media, that the players on the court or the players on the field provide the music. You guys provide the lyrics, and those have been some difficult lyrics to write here over the past decade, sitting behind that bench for Missouri basketball. And how gratifying is it to see this new coach in this situation going where it's going?
It's interesting. I was talking to Tom Hart earlier in the day. He had called, and we were talking about a variety of different things. And I said to him, you didn't realize how much you missed it until you become relevant again. It's a situation that Missouri should never have been in the position that they've been in. Prior to winning on Tuesday, what night it was.
Wednesday, I guess. Yeah.
On Wednesday, Missouri was 63 and 115 all time in the SEC. And this is a program, a once proud program under Coach Stewart, that when you made the shift to the Southeastern Conference, you thought this would be a sport that Missouri would compete in consistently, and they didn't. And so the result is you've gone through a number of different head coaches, and I believe at the bottom of my heart that they found the right guy in Dennis Gates. And so, I like the way that you phrased that we provide the lyrics, but what we do really, it's all dependent on what you see and what you feel as the game's taking place. And, I remember the Kim English team, and Marcus Denman and those guys, the team you referenced in 12, where there was the anticipation when one of those guys on the wing put up a shot from the perimeter that it was probably going in or going to be very close. And as a broadcaster, there's a sense of excitement as the ball leaves the hands of the shooter, because you anticipate that the basket's going to be made. Well, since that point in time, you were almost surprised when Missouri made 3-point shots, because it had fallen that badly. They'd become such inconsistent players from the perimeter. And so, now with this team, there's again, and there's an excitement level. I love the style of play, the fact that they attack on both sides of the court. And again, you just feel the emotion as a broadcaster, because you sense that, there's an opportunity every time that they touch the ball. And so I really didn't realize, how much I had missed that sense of excitement, over the course of the last 10 years. And it's just neat to see a team that's relevant again. And, you can say what you want about that short-lived, snippet that we had with Michael Porter Jr., but I never believed that Missouri had arrived as a program, because you never knew. You knew Michael was a 1 year and done kid, and you didn't know. You struck gold with Cassius, at Robertson as a point guard, but you didn't know what the future held. And now seeing what Dennis Gates and Charlton Young and Dickie Nutt and Kyle Smith-Peters and the entire crew have done in terms of trying to lay the foundation. And I just believe that Missouri's on more solid footing than they've been in years.
Completely agree. This is going to be a very tough SEC slate. A lot of good teams out there. We've seen Mississippi State. LSU's very good. Missouri's going to get Vanderbilt coming up on Saturday, which could provide just a little bit of a break in the action, so to speak. But Mike, I just got to go back, with you, because your voice was so synonymous with my early days as a Missouri fan. And I remember riding around with my dad. Games wouldn't be on TV, and we're listening to games like 95 against the Purdue Boilermakers, I think, that went to overtime. And my favorite, the 1996 San Juan shootout in Puerto Rico, where Missouri lost at the buzzer to Clemson. Mike, are you someone that has the memory that you remember a lot of these specific moments, not just the big ones, but some of the ones I'm referencing that just like stick out, or is it just kind of like all a blur now, 25, 30 years later?
There's certain things that you remember about different points in time. And, candidly, when you say San Juan in 96, there's a couple of things that stand out about that trip. First of all, I was forced to drive the rental car. I know no Spanish whatsoever, and so the number of times that we got lost, or what was I think could have been a record for any group of people on a short trip. The number of times that we almost got picked off because they're such bad drivers. That's a memory that I have. I believe that Purdue game took place in Detroit as part of the Grade 8 shootout. Certainly remember going to, at that point in time, it was the Palace at Auburn Hills, first trip going in there. Got to meet John Hammond for the first time. John Hammond was I think the assistant GM of the Pistons, and a guy who had spent time with Coach Spoonhauer down at that point in time, it was Southwest Missouri, now Missouri State. You always remember a variety of different things. I mean, the Edney game will always stand out, in 95, the triple overtime game, beating Nebraska to close out the Big 8 regular season in 94, being close against Oklahoma in 02 in the Elite Eight, beating Memphis with a deep heave by Denman in the NCAA tournament in Glendale, Arizona, then having a chance to beat UConn the next day, or 2 days later. So there are a variety of different things stand out. And again, man, I say this with trying to be as humble as I possibly can. I've just been so lucky and fortunate. I mean, it's my whole thing, it's been a God thing, in terms of my ability to develop a relationship with Missouri, and then the way the timing played out in terms of me being able to transition from doing Tiger Talk to doing color on the basketball broadcast, to then doing play-by-play, to then doing, the football play-by-play. So I just cherish the memories that I have.
Oh, that's wonderfully said, Mike. And you've always been known as kind of a pro's pro. The Missouri broadcasts, since you've been there, have been very professional. I listen to, in the Kansas City area, Mike, I won't name any names, but I've listened to other programs, broadcasts over the years. They have a different tone to them. Mike, you've always been someone that's extremely professional. You have a style and a delivery, and it's like an AC/DC album. You know what you're going to get from a Missouri broadcast. I think that's an ultimate compliment. It should be.
That's yeah. Thank you. Wow. I was just listening to Thunderstruck just a couple hours ago. So
see, we would get along just fine. Well, it stands out because and is that something that you've always been conscious of? That, because I think there's been times where I've even as a kid probably were frustrated in the fact that your voice inflected positively for an opposing team. The game I'm talking about from San Juan was the Clemson, who was ranked second in the nation, beat Missouri on a buzzer beater. And I remember being so just shaken by that moment, but your excitement level almost was at an appropriate level for a moment like that, but for an opposing team. But do you consciously realize that you're kind of in a different mode when it comes to calling these games? I know Missouri means a lot to you, and I know these fans and the players and the coaches mean a lot, but it's a different broadcast than, say, a school to the west.
Well, I was very, very fortunate at a very young age to work with Jack Buck.
Yeah.
The first ever Cardinal baseball game I did was with Mr. Buck. I can remember when it was announced I was going to do play-by-play prior to the 91-92 season. And it was also announced that Joe Buck was going to be my color analyst for that year. And Mr. Buck, who I will always call him Mr. Buck, used to refer to us as the two fledglings. When are you two fledglings going to begin your career? To which I say one of us is still kind of fledgling, the other one's done pretty well. But he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, listen, here's the deal. Like, no one wants to hear you complain about an official's call because you're not a referee. You'll never be one. No one wants to hear you second guessing a coach's call because you're not one and you'll never be one. Your main job, task number one, is to call the play. And you don't know who's listening to your broadcast. Sure, there's probably the majority of the listeners are Missouri fans, but there's also fans of not only the other team, but just objective fans that want to hear the game delivered in a manner in which you provide energy for kids making plays. And at the end of the day, what I do is describe kids making plays. And so I've always been of the belief that it's my priority to call the game and to try to be, do I want Missouri to win? Yeah, you want Missouri to win, of course. But you also have to pay tribute when somebody makes a terrific play, because it's the essence of the game is kids making plays. And so that's just the thoughts that he provided for me at a young age. And I've just tried to maintain that, throughout the course of the last 30 years.
That is a broadcasting lesson 101, folks. That is tremendous. And it definitely permeates through your great career, which is now a Hall of Fame career from 2017. You're inducted in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. There's been many great Missouri dignitaries that have been inducted into that. I think recently Jeremy Macklin, we've seen Gary Pinkel, Norm Stewart. It's a distinguished list, Mike, and you're now a part of that. And just what does that mean to you? Because I think that you've been involved with so many greats, whether it be Gary Link, Chris Gervino, certainly John Cadillac, which, by the way, I now know, and I've got it ingrained in my mind, where to get the best piece of gooseberry pie anywhere in the state of Missouri, and I'll never forget that. So it's been a Hall of Fame career, but you've worked with some wonderful, wonderful broadcasters, including now, of course, also Howard Richards on the football end. So
and don't forget that if you're making the trip from Kansas City to Columbia, and you maybe lunchtime, maybe even close to dinner time, heck, it could be any time, honestly. You want to stop at Brownsville Station, in Sweet Springs, because they have the elephant ear, as Coach Cadillac used to describe it. The deep fried pork tenderloin that is tender as a mother's love. He'd want you to know that as well. But
I miss him.
Yeah, I do too. And there's so many times that I think back, and Chris and I laugh about this a lot, that we just miss him so much, and we think about the stories. But the Hall of Fame thing caught me by surprise. I was very, really just kind of stunned when I got the phone call from Gerald Andrews back in, I guess it was late 2016. Because as a broadcaster, when you think about Sports Hall of Fame, the first thing that always crosses my mind is, do I belong? Because other people have done things, those that are being represented are doing things that are on the field. And that's in essence, to me, what a Sports Hall of Fame is those that have excelled in their craft on the field or wherever on the track. And so I've always just wondered, do broadcasters actually belong? So that was my first read. But then the second thing is, obviously very, very thankful, that somebody recognizes your efforts and the job that you've done. And so I had a great class that I went in with. I mean, Art Haynes, who, I think about him quite a bit because he's still kind of battling to get back in the position and trying to recover from a very, serious health issue that we all pray he's going to be back to 100%. And, then I think about, Jim Crane, the owner of the Houston Astros, who I went in with as well, who's a St. Louis native who was a terrific pitcher at Central Missouri. Vince Coleman is a guy that I knew when I was working at KMOX. Got to spend a lot of time with him. Used to play some pickup basketball games at the old South County YMCA with Vince. And so, my thing was honored, right? Humbled. But there's also a part of you that thinks, is this a body of individuals that I deserve to be a part of? And, so very, very thankful that somebody thinks I do.
I will answer that for you, Mike. The answer is yes, very much deserved. And I'm very happy because, it's interesting what you are drawn to as a sports fan. For some, the intricacies of a broadcast or journalistic integrity, say in a newspaper, don't really cross your mind. But for me, that was so paramount and again, has been so influential. So very much deserved, Mike, and, all the future success. And I guess, I kind of want to ask you before we kind of wrap up here is, as Missouri goes on into this next era of college athletics, which this is a new era of college athletics, with Desiree Reed-Francois, the coaches that are in place, the system that's in place, the NIL deals that are still being formed. Do you see Missouri as just in general as an athletics department that's ready to take that next step? Because Mike, it's been 4 straight years finishing 500 in football, and to me, I always say that's like floating down a river with a straw in your mouth that's barely getting air as you're surviving, right? So, do you believe this athletic department's in good hands, and what kind of do you expect going forward?
Well, I think the world of Desiree. I really do, and I think she's made some very good, changes, and really like and have enjoyed spending time around some of the administrators that she's brought in. But there's more to, in this day and age of college athletics, there's more to success on the field than the administrative team that's kind of leading the department, right? And so, you think back to the just most recent amount of success when Missouri had a role in football under Gary Pinkel, that you had consistency in the athletic director's chair. You had consistency in the head coach's chair. You had consistency in the chancellor's chair. You had a vested interest by the president of the university. You had a vested interest by those that were in state government, in particular the governor. I think about the amount of times that I'd see Jay Nixon at games. And so it's, for Missouri to be successful, it's got to be important to literally a variety of people, a host of people outside of Mizzou Arena. It's got to be important to the state government. It's got to be important to those that run the institution. It's got to be important to the fan base. Even more now than ever, there's more of a yearning or more input that can be done by the fans themselves, and because of the NIL and because of unmitigated free agency that we have right now in all college sports. the corporate community in Missouri has got to want the University of Missouri to be successful in athletics. And how do they show their interest? Well, by investing in the program. And so it takes, it takes a village, right? It really does. And, I think Desiree has done a terrific job. I really do. And I like her engagement with the fans and the fact that they've done fan surveys to really pick the brains of what it is that the Missouri fan wants. And they've implemented some of those changes. But there's no question in my mind that Missouri can be a player on a national stage in the two sports that primarily I follow, and that's football and basketball. No offense to anybody else. I want Missouri to do well across the board. I just don't have time to follow the 18 other, sports that Missouri has. But it really, in 2023, I'm hoping that we're seeing momentum building in terms of, support from the corporate community, support from the fan base. We need members to the Tiger Scholarship Fund, and it doesn't have to be people that are giving $1,000 a year, $100 a year, whatever they can afford. I mean, there's certainly value and momentum, strength in numbers. And so you asked kind of a broad question,
Yeah.
and it really is a broad answer to it, because it takes more than just those, couple hundred people that work in administration to make Missouri successful, and hopefully you're whetting the appetite, right, with the success we're having in basketball, getting back into the top 20. I mean, Pinkel used to say the magic it's a 3-letter magic word, right? WIN. And that's something that we need to see more of, certainly in football.
Mike, do you have an end game, if you will, in sight for your career? After 30 years, do you start thinking about those kind of things? Does there, what's the thought process as the seasons just keep coming and going here?
Well, Chris always calls my doctor just to see what kind of shape I'm in.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he does.
See how I'm doing. It's interesting. I just turned 61. I feel tremendously healthful. Can't say it. Can't talk. To feel healthy. I do kind of a self-assessment each and every year after the football and basketball season, in talking to a number of different people that are in this business and that are also, friends that I know I can trust to give me an honest opinion. I haven't thought of an end game. I haven't. But at the end of the day, I will tell you this, that I have always said this about my position as the voice of the Tigers. It's not my job. It's not. I'm the seat warmer. It's a job that belongs to the institution and to the rights holder in Learfield Communications. Mm-hmm. And at some point in time, somebody's going to come pat Mike Kelly on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you know what? Thanks. Really appreciate your work." And it's their job, right? I've just been fortunate enough to be in this position for as long as I have been, and look forward to hopefully being able to continue in this capacity for several years. Again, I'm 61. I think I could probably go till I'm 70. God willing. And so, I still enjoy it. And that's the thing. If you enjoy it, and if you enjoy being around the student athletes and the coaches and things like that, and the fans, and if you can do the job, then continue to do it. If God willing, people want you to be there.
Well, I know our good friend of the West, Bob Davis, was in that chair for a long time, asking for offensive fouls and travels to be called all the way to the end. So, Mike, there's many years, hopefully, of prosperity and being a part of this university. And I tell you, I run into you, in the press boxes at some of these events, and I don't know that I'd be in these press boxes covering Mizzou athletics, covering the sports that I do, if not for some of your influence. I have a picture somewhere of you and I from when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, from after a game against Kansas State. That
oh my Lord! Will you do me a favor? Will you snap it and
I will
and email it to me? That'd be great.
I have on an old Kelly Thames jersey, the old starter, and pretty sure that actually, I think it was after the Kelly Thames' senior day, Missouri beat Kansas State. It was, if you remember that season, this is just us getting off on a real quick tangent before we let you go. I think Missouri had lost by like 40 points at Manhattan. And in the last game of the season, Missouri beat Kansas State by like 35 in Kelly Thames' last game. I think that's the game it is.
Yeah, I think the game over there, it might have been a 56-point setback.
Yeah, okay.
The Josh Reed game.
That,
that was, I believe that was the game
yeah.
that Coach Stewart walked up to me. That was back in the day when we took the 3 King Airs and flew to the individual campuses day of. And, we get out to the tarmac in Manhattan. And Coach Stewart comes up to me, and he was always on plane number 1. And he says, "Hey, I'm flying on plane 3, and it's up to you to figure out who's going on plane 1." I said, "Coach, you don't really want to do that, right? I mean, you leave on plane 1, you're going to beat us home by 30 minutes at least." He says, "Hey, I'm flying on plane 3 because I know you have beer." And so,
well, thank goodness for that.
Coach got his wish. Yeah. Well, that also was the shortest post game, I think, in the history of the Tiger Network. He came over, and Gary Link said the following question: "Coach, if you coach long enough, you're bound to have a game like that." And he says, "Gary, you should never have a game like that. Mike, back to you."
That was the game that even Gary Link couldn't give me hope that Missouri could come back in. I was always very hopeful with 9-point deficits with under a minute. Gary would always try to keep me engaged there. Mike, all we need here is a quick stop and a 3. And there's the Mike Kellyisms, by the way. I don't know how much you read like message boards and Twitter and stuff like that, but this should be a compliment, because there's a lot of Mike Kellyisms that fans will bring out to this day, whether it be a ball carrier being hemmed in and dropped, or popped off his feet at the 35-yard line, or, rotation splash. These are all things that fans have sort of just synonymously put with you over these years. So do you kind of find that as a badge of honor
I think anytime that, was an imitation's the greatest form of flattery. I have a friend in St. Louis that does an uncanny, impersonation of me, and will call me on the phone and start talking in me, and I got
to hear that.
It's again, I've just been really, really lucky, really honored and blessed, and if I've given joy, any measure of joy over the last 30 years to people that have been kind enough to listen to us, then that's all I can ask.
Well, Mike, it's been a tremendous career and a lot of big things coming up. We will be listening here as Missouri travels to Arkansas, Fayetteville, Bud Walton Arena to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks here on Wednesday night. Thanks so much. Happy New Year to you. And thank you so much for being a part of the show, Mike. I'm sure I'll see you out there at a sporting event near you in the near future, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great 2023.
You bet. Thank you.